All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 11th, 2021 Board of Education meeting. Call to order. Ms. Hagerly, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. King?
Here.
Mrs. Sebastian? Here. Mr. Elam?
Here.
Mrs. Mansfield? Here. This time, Ms. Reese is not present.
Okay. If you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. Additions to the agenda. Other than A, B, C, D, E.
A, B, C, D, and E.
Yeah.
My items are letter A. We received the Miami County ESC contract after our October 5th meeting, so we wanted to get that on the agenda for your approval. Then we have amended appropriations. As you know, we approved the early site work that's starting down the road. So we needed to get the budget put in I need your approval for the adjustment on that budget, among others. So
C, D, and E are itemized underneath the superintendent's report. Letter G is approval of a classified staff member. Letter D, K would be the approval of advertising sponsorship, which we'll speak about in a little bit more detail later on for our stadium project. And then letter E, A is a proposed resolution to support Bethel Township against annexation.
Could you tell me what ESC is?
Educational Service Center.
And that means?
That's who oversees the 9 county schools in Miami County. So a number of our staff members and services that we receive in the district, such as special education, school psychology, speech language pathologists, those kind of services often come from ESC because Bethel Local Schools isn't large enough as a district to be able to pay for those services on our own. So they're a supportive group as far as providing services to school systems. And that's throughout the state. All 88 counties in the state of Ohio are required to be affiliated with an ESC. Ours is Miami County up in Troy.
All right, hearing of the public regarding agenda items specifically listed on the agenda. Yes.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time to put together the item E for the resolution to support the Bethel Township against annexation. I just want to thank you all for taking the time to do that and have that ready for tonight's meeting. Thank you.
All right. Next, item 4, turn over to Mr. Firks. Administrative reports.
Yep, administrative reports. First on the agenda this evening is the elementary school. Probably have a combined effort potentially between Ms. Carrie Jones and Ms. Cassie Schock, who serve as our elementary principals for their monthly update. Ladies?
Everybody, hello. For our update, Mrs. Rust, our music teacher, wrote a grant and received boomwhacker xylophone kits for our elementary music classes. So we're excited about that.
Mrs. Parrish, one of our first grade teachers, also received a grant, which is going to allow them to bring in some hands-on science activities, including hatching chicks in the room and some hands-on activities to learn about the weather. I think they recently made some anemometers in their classrooms.
Our Quest students have been doing various STEM activities in class. They did a marshmallow challenge where they had 20 minutes to make a freestanding structure, and that worked on teamwork with their peers. They had a tallest cup tower where they had 30 minutes and 48 plastic cups. The winning team was able to make one that was 8 cups high. And lastly, they've been working on creating a chess set and learning the game of chess. So creative thinking and working together.
In addition, we have a lot of things going on related to literature. We have a book fair that's scheduled to come the second week of November, which will be open for students to shop during their normal library time, so they're not missing instructional time. And we're also looking to have that available for parents on the conference night of November 11th. So if they wanted to purchase books that night, that would be available. In addition, we have Bookmobile visited first grade students this past week as well. And Mrs. Navalino, one of our first grade teachers, set that up. The last thing we listed on there was the fire prevention week last week. That was interesting. They came and met with all the K through 3rd grade. Monday was kindergarten. I think they got called away on calls about every hour. But they ended up being able to see all the students. They had a great time and we got some wonderful pictures. They also included the little hats for all the students and a goodie bag with all kinds of treats in there. So I think the kids enjoyed that. Thank you.
Any questions at all?
Say thank you to Miss Rust and Miss Parrish for going out there and getting grants, finding them to help our students. Every dollar counts, and so I think that's awesome. As well as thanking Bethel Township Fire Department here in Miami County for coming out and providing that safety, and you as well supporting that. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right, middle school principal, Mr. Matt Tripp.
Since our last meeting, the Outdoor Adventure Club had their first adventure as they went out canoeing with the Miami County Park District. We had a maximum number of 24 students participate in the trip. So thank you to the Miami County Parks District for their partnership in educating and providing opportunities to our students. Just an update on the 7th grade shots. All students now have their shots and immunizations so they can attend school. School picture retakes will be November 11th. Open gyms have begun for both boys and girls middle school basketball. The principals of agriculture class and the 6th grade science classes have been harvesting their vegetables out in the courtyard. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, they're now preparing the beds for winter. And lastly, Mr. Indris will be taking 110 students to Washington, D.C. Here in 2 weeks. And that's both 8th and 9th graders for those 9th graders that missed last year. So there are some 9th graders participating in that as well.
Awesome, thank you, and we'll be praying for Mr. Indris as he leads that trip. And obviously, again, I know we brought it before, but thank you, Mr. Swope and Mr. Triplett, for working together to allow the group that didn't get to go to DC last year to go if they wanted to. So thank you.
All right, high school principal, Mr. Barrett Swope.
Good evening. A few things. We had a representative from Jostens come in and do a presentation to the sophomores for those that were interested in ordering a class ring. The Jocelyn representative then met with the seniors and distributed information and gave a little presentation concerning caps and gowns for graduation, as well as graduation announcements. Representatives then came back about a week later and collected orders. However, just putting it out there that it's not too late to order still. Parents can order online at jostens.com if they have not ordered caps and gowns and graduation announcements. We had homecoming, and it was a little bit more like normal this year, thankfully. We had dress up days. The student council awarded best dressed. They went into the cafeteria each day and found those students that were best dressed and gave them each little gift cards and things. We also had a Pep Rally. This was the first one we've been able to have since the fall of 2019. We had the parade on Friday, and then the court announcement, and in the football game itself, we won comeback against Lehman Catholic and won 21-17. We had parent-teacher conference night just last week. In addition to the conferences, we had a couple of counselors from Sinclair Community College come, and they did a presentation to parents, senior parents, and students concerning filling out the FAFSA, which is required paperwork to be filled out if students are planning on applying for grants and loans, federal grants and loans for colleges. We had a good attendance, especially compared to last year and the year before. Attendance was up for that meeting. Coming up next week, we have student representatives from Miami Valley Career Tech Center coming. Last year, they were not able to come into the building because of the COVID situation. This year, we do have them coming back. They will do presentations in all the sophomore English classes. And then all of our sophomores will have the opportunity to take a field trip out to CTC at the end of November. Coming up, we have Powder Puff and a bonfire this Wednesday. That was postponed from homecoming week due to weather. And this Friday night is senior night for senior football players, cheerleaders, band, golf, and cross country. The other fall sports have had their senior nights or are having their senior nights, even now as we speak with the boys soccer team individually there. So that's all I have.
Questions from Mr. Small?
I just want to say thank you for the number of times you go above and beyond and assisting us in school routes. Thank you very much. All right, so important dates to remember. A lot of them was just shared in the updates. One that is not there is October 13th is Meet the Candidate Night here in Beverly Hall. It'll be provided, hosted by the Historical Society at 7 p.m. We expect, since the Powder Puff game and this is fairly close to the same time, and everybody to know that the front door entrance will be accessible for those wanting to attend if the parking lot's you park out this side.
From high school entrance.
That's true. And fall choir concerts occurring on the 20th, 21st at 2-hour early release. 22nd, no school. The 28th is our groundbreaking ceremony at 1:30 for the new K-5 facility. The November 2nd is the general election day. All right. We missing anything? Looks like we captured it. All right, next is 6 items requesting board action.
First item A, letter A, is Montgomery County ESC contracts. These are for services that Miami County doesn't provide. So we have autism services, educational assessment team that goes along with the autism services, and Mr. Burks will correct me if I say anything wrong, because I'm the numbers girl, not the education girl. So, and then we have hearing services and vision. We went over this on October 5th, but these are small contracts for additional services that our students need. So we just need your approval. so we can get those contracts in place and get everything taken care of. Item B is the Miami County ESC. That is our we use them primarily, Miami County Educational Service Center, and those are the services that we are purchasing from them at this time. And this amount is typically, unless they're 100% assigned to Bethel, those services are spread out among the other districts in Miami County. So we need your approval for that contract as well. We have the meeting minutes from our September 7th meeting, as well as our 13th meeting. And then approval of payment of bills. So this is the new detailed check register that comes from the new system that we put in. We were able to do the conversion late in September. So this is what you're going to see from now on. It gives you much more detail than what you're accustomed to seeing on the old reports. So just need your approval on that one as well. And monthly financial reports for September. So we're looking pretty good. I don't know how much detail we want to go into, but I'm not sweating over here because we are right in line where what we think, or our proposed budget and our proposed spending is. We're seeing less than, less than a % difference, because our target was 35.57 in revenues. We're at 34.95. Of course, I'd rather have that be a little higher rather than a little lower, but it's close. And then our target on expenses was 22.94%, and we're at 22.87. So right where we need to be currently. So unless anybody has any specific questions, all these pretty charts about where our money is coming from and where our money is going. Again, we're right where we need to be as far as what we anticipated at this time of the year.
Will we get one more income tax installment this year?
Yes, we should.
When is that due?
Think February, but I'll have to double check.
Oh, we only get it twice a year?
Yeah, I think it's only
But we
12.
don't get it quarterly. Okay,
No.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
June, yeah.
February and June.
You got it in July this year, so it was July, and so I'm thinking February and March. I'll double check, because income tax is new to me.
usually used to come in quarterly, but you can check. and-
I'll check, I'll
Yeah.
double check.
Yeah.
I did a new amended appropriations report. The one that comes from redesign is really convoluted, but this shows you what you had appropriated, what we appropriated on 9/13, what our adjustments were, what we had to carry over from last year, meaning what was carried over in a purchase order that hadn't been paid on yet, and what our total appropriations are. And then goes into a little bit of detail as far as giving you, where all that money's coming from and what funds they're all in. So I'm asking for an increase in appropriations of a little over $2 million. The majority of that is from the 070 fund, which is, of course, the building project. So overall, it's 2,196,000, I think. I can't see from what you said, but it's 86. Thank you. So that's where there are a few little increases, but mostly reductions that we see in the other funds. So that's good, but I need your approval on that as well. Classified salary schedule, we talked about this on the 5th. We added the network systems administrator position, so just need your approval. And then donations from the booster organizations to the high school musical for $1,400. A donation to girls basketball and for cross country. And that's all I have for today.
All right, thank you, ma'am. We have a motion to place the items from the treasurer's report onto the consent calendar.
I'll move.
Thank you, Lyda.
I'll second.
And thank you, Julie, for the second. Any discussion?
I would just like to say thank you for all your work. I know converting 2 systems over is a pretty big project and all the other things on your plate. One question, do we have, with this appropriations budget, are we set then for what Garmin, Miller and Peterson need on the budget? Or do you have to go? No.
No, I'm gonna go through that and make sure this is just for the early site that you already approved.
Okay, gotcha.
So we'll have some additional
Okay.
changes to the appropriations. I still have some people to meet with and go through their budget, so there may be some increases and decreases as we go along there too, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. First, I know this isn't technically your section, but with the ESC stuff being in here, that's your area, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these services, I know there's some that are like small portions like library and media aids and things like that, so it would be less, I'm sure, to create a position for $28,000. It's gonna be difficult to hire someone to cover that for. But some of these maybe might be a position we might want to bring in-house. Is there thought to some of that for some of these? Or
We currently have been, when we've had positions come available and they've been ESC, we've taken a look at the financials.
Right.
Need to also understand that for every employee that we get from the ESC, they charge us a 4.5% administrative fee. So I try to avoid individual cases, but like, for example, Mrs. Dirks in the high school was an ESC employee. Financially through salary and benefits and also the administrative fee, it made more sense for us to hire her on staff. So we've done that with a number of positions, even our 8 positions. If it saves the district money to make them a Bethel employee, we've done that.
absolutely.
We'll continue to look at that as
I'm
well.
saying if you've
And the reason why
already
there's
some of these.
The reason why there's an administrative fee for every staff member is ESCs don't receive the same amount of money per pupil that traditional school systems receive. And that's a way for them to essentially create some revenue to help operate their funds.
Absolutely. I just know if you kind of had a target in your mind, like something like.
We look at it case by case, depending upon what they're currently making and also what kind of insurance plan they take. And then also that 4.5% fee.
Awesome.
And do you typically look at the ones that are full-time, right?
Yeah.
If we're sharing with another school, they're probably not gonna.
No, they wouldn't,
Right.
they wouldn't do that because the school that they are shared with wouldn't allow them to be a full-time employee here. So an example of that would be like gifted coordinator. Our gifted coordinator is shared between us and 2 other districts. We would have to continue using that as an ESC employee unless the district would get to a point where they needed to hire them. So.
And I just have one question, do you know, about the construction, where we're appropriating the 2 million, is that how it normally will go? We do that as it's needed to be paid out?
It's the way I've done it in the past. Now, I know other districts have done big budgets and gone that way, but I mean, the way I've done it in the past is as the board approves it, we put the appropriations together and adjust the budget. So that everybody's aware along each step of the way, so.
Okay.
Would it be fair to say that the money gets to stay in the account? to
It
draw
stays in
interest
that 070.
Until once we appropriate, we gotta take it from there and put it in the account.
Right, because the state requires that I have a purchase order on file before they bill us and before they start work, we've got to put it in the budget. And we put it in for their full amount of their bid. And then as they bill, we pay on that purchase order. But the money will stay in that designated 0760 account and in the investment account to earn interest as we go along.
Okay, thank you.
The open checkbook is easier to read as well. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? All right. I would just like to thank the organizations for the donations they provided to the musicals, to the girls basketball program and cross country. So those are wonderful gifts. All right, hearing none, will you please call the vote?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Next will be the motion to adopt the consent calendar with items from the treasurer's report.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Just have to change the
It
minutes.
says, yeah,
It says superintendent, should be
should
treasurer.
be treasured.
Okay. Can you please call the vote?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield. Yes. Sorry, my apologies.
I'll talk.
Got on a roll there.
Good to switch seats. Any other information from the treasurer?
Not at this time, no. Mm-mm.
Turn it over to Mr. First.
Good evening. On the agenda this evening for consideration is letter A, approval of certified substitutes. It's one that I seem to be talking about frequently in meetings. Forgive me if I sound like a broken record. Each time the Miami County Educational Service Center has a change, whether it's an additional substitute added to their list or a current substitute that's decided not to substitute anymore, we have to routinely approve that substitute teacher list. So the way things are going now with subs, you'll probably see this one on here for the foreseeable future. Letter B is approval of the 21-22 Bethel Local Schools Gifted Services Education Plan. It's a fairly user, or I should say reader-friendly document that, if approved this evening, will be posted on our website. It gives families a comprehensive idea of how we test and assess and determine whether students qualify for gifted educational services. It gives you an idea of what their cut scores are as far as identification scores, what grades we test in for what specific ability levels, the procedures that we go through during the testing process, how we screen those students. It also talks a little bit about how students who transfer in the district, their services carry over. It also discusses referrals, and then also finally discusses the different programs that we provide, whether it's Quest in grades 3 through 5, how we provide different subject acceleration in grades 6, 7, Algebra 1 in middle school, and also cluster groupings as well. And at the high school level for services, we provide advanced, accelerated, honors, AP, and college credit plus. Annually, we are supposed to approve this according to the Ohio Revised Code. And so it's one that you'll see on here regularly. It's provided and created by our county gifted coordinator, who does this for all of the districts which she represents throughout Miami County. So if approved this evening, it'll be posted on our website for current families or new families to review as they decide whether Bethel Local Schools is a destination or if they want to have their student try to be tested for services if they're already here. Letter C is approval of the Miami County Business Advisory Council Plan. Once again, this is one that's required by Ohio Revised Code annually. It's created by our Miami County Educational Service Center for all 9 schools in Miami County. You can see those schools listed. It essentially provides a framework for how schools interact with our Business Advisory Council, the number of meetings we have per year, what the responsibilities are, who to contact in each one of those districts. It also lists the meeting dates that I do attend as the rep for the district, and also provides some short plans as far as BAC for goals for each of the districts in which they're trying to accomplish throughout the course of the school year. So that's on the agenda this evening as well for consideration. Letter D is approval of leave of absence. This is Cindy Parrish. We have had a change in her leave. It was November 15th. Thankfully, she's been able to get in for her procedure a little earlier. It will now be on November 4th, and you can see the letter that's attached in executive view. Letter E is approval of classified employees. First one is an additional kindergarten aide for assistance for a student with disabilities. And then also a bus driver aide as well to escort a student to an alternate placement for educational purposes as well as required by their IEP plan. Letter F is approval of classified substitutes. You can see we've added a substitute van driver as needed, which is always good to see. Any substitute additional drivers we can get is always a benefit for the district. And then also welcoming back Mrs. Reagan Butler, who recently retired as athletic director secretary, will be serving as a substitute custodian on second shift as needed. So it's going to be nice to have Mrs. Butler back in the building in the evenings. Letter G is approval of classified employee transfer. That was the salary schedule that was created earlier in the meeting. And you can see the appropriate steps for Mr. Hutnick, who serves as our network systems administrator, and the hourly rate. Letter H is one that I always like to see on the schedule, and one we've been able to do the last couple of years with great success, not only in our maintenance department, but also our IT department. We've also now been able to add a student to help out with the cafeteria and cleaning up after the lunches. We have a narrow, limited amount of time between lunches with high school, middle school, and elementary all eating in one building, in one location. And so Nico is going to be able to help us out in the cafeteria and get floors swept up and clean tables, et cetera, so that it's ready to go for the next group of kids that come in. And then we've also are able to add an additional student to serve as an assistant for Mr. Bird as well. So those are the two students that are on here this evening. Letter I is approval of a resignation of a supplemental employee, Kyle Holden, as 8th grade boys basketball coach. I'd like to thank Mr. Holden for his service in the district as the 8th grade coach. Although he's still going to be in the program, he is now going to be serving as a volunteer, and he's within that group of folks that are going to be hired for supplementals this evening. So he's not necessarily leaving the program, just serving in a different capacity in the program. Letter J is the list of supplementals that I talked about previously, the number of folks that will be serving in a variety of capacities and roles, from volunteer assisted drama advisor, math club coaches, resident educator mentors, various basketball coaches, assistant winter athletic director, and then some volunteers for boys basketball as well. So you can see the names that are listed. Those folks that are new to the district recently, as far as coaching capacities or advisory roles, their resumes have been attached in executive view for the Board of Education members to review as well. Letter K. Letter K is one that I'm really excited to announce this evening. We've had some tremendous success with our fundraising efforts for our athletic stadium, and we're able to add an additional one this evening. Thank you to Monroe Federal out of Vandalia, who has graciously stepped forward and is donating $25,000 to our stadium project. They are going to have the home side bleachers named after them. That $25,000 will be paid out over a 5-year term, $5,000 per year for 5 years. And they will have the naming rights right now to that home side bleachers for 15 years. So I'd really like to thank the folks at Monroe Federal. Also like to thank Mr. Todd Bird, who was a big player in making that happen, and also athletic director, Mr. Dana Smith. So really excited about the continued work that we do in this area. Some of the sponsorships and naming rights that we're able to sell to help continue to make the facility a little bit nicer with the additional things that we're going to be able to purchase with it. And those are the items that I had on the agenda for this evening.
All right, thank you, sir. We have a motion to place the items from the superintendent's report to the consent calendar.
I'll move.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Julie, for the second. Any discussion?
Question, and I'm not even sure this can be answered here, but I mean, we're raising the money because we need it to put into the stadium. So how does it work when it's over that, like the 5-year period that you just mentioned? Not these guys specifically, but just in general. How do we apply that money now, or can we apply it now, or do we have to wait as the years go by? You know what I'm asking?
Can you say that again?
So we're trying to raise the money so we can get the artificial turf and everything, but that's kind of right now, right?
Correct.
So how does it work when we need the money now, but we're getting it over a time period?
The initial plan is to have the athletic boosters take out a preliminary loan
Okay,
to pay for the cost of the project, meaning the extra stuff, not the cost of the whole project. And then that'll be paid out over time with the money that we're receiving here, in addition to the additional fundraising efforts that they do to help offset those payments.
all right, perfect, thank you.
I would just like to say huge congratulations and thanks to Todd Bird and Dana Smith, as well as to Monroe Federal, for believing in our school and believing in our community to donate $25,000 to help support our stadium. So thank you very much. Any other discussion points? All right. Could you call the roll, please? Ms. Hagan?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Next will be a motion to adopt the consent calendar with the items from the superintendent's report. Thank you, Lyda.
I'll say.
Thank you, Danny, for the second. Any further discussion? All right. You call the vote, please, Ms. Hagan?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, other information from the superintendent.
Have two items on the agenda this evening. Letter A is donation to the athletic boosters. This is one that we've mentioned previously, but you can see we have a signed agreement in place, a $25,000 grant to the Bethel Athletic Boosters from the TIP Foundation in regards to the naming rights for the walkway and pavilion. Once again, it's a $25,000 grant to the district. That'll be paid out over 5 years at $5,000 per year. It's a 15-year term for the naming rights, and the official name of that location in the stadium will be Tip City Foundation Walkway and Pavilion, which is what all these entities get to choose what they want to name it. So once again, thankful to the Tip Foundation for stepping forward and taking the naming rights to this location in the district. And as these come in and you see the work being done currently on the new K5 site, it's a lot of kind of hard work coming to fruition, which is good to see. And a lot of exciting things going on in the district right now, and construction completion will hopefully be here before we all know it.
Well, I would just like to mention, I know on behalf of the board, to a huge thank you to the foundation, not only for this donation, but they continuously, time and time again, continue to support our teachers that are submitting for the grants and support our students with the funding that they continuously give our school well above and beyond this 25,000. So they're a consistent footprint for us to get those educational materials and events or experiments or any of those pieces that dramatically assist in our instruction and our teachers. Huge thank you.
Yeah, and for those in the audience who may not know, Tip Foundation just passed $2.5 million grant since their inception, which is pretty exciting for a local entity of a city the size of Tip City to hit. So I wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah. Not only for us, huge for our entire region and area.
Letter B is a K5 building and stadium project update. It's an update that I received this morning from Runs Excavation and Peterson. They provided an email update and talked just a little bit about some of the work that's been going on the last few days over at the new K5 site. Just kind of give you a brief update in the progress they've made. Last week, they began mowing the weeds down and stripping topsoil. They've also placed a silt fence around the perimeter of the site. They will be currently utilizing the farm drive until the new drive is made and installed. They're looking at starting cuts and fills next week. And in the next coming weeks, if you travel out there and take a look, you should see the building pad being developed, also drives being put in, and also parking lot pads being developed as well. So they're really taking advantage of the nice weather they're having and trying to get a bunch of work done before old man winter hits us. We also have an upcoming event, as was mentioned previously. Groundbreaking ceremony will take place on October 28th at 1:30 p.m. We're probably going to do it right out here, just north of the high school building in the grass area here. I don't want to trek everybody over to the site where it's muddy and everything. So we'll do it right out here for the K5. We'll also be having some promos going out early next week, inviting any community members that want to come out and participate as well. So we have a good program that we're developing. We're getting the K5 students involved as well, choir, et cetera. And we're going to have some speakers, and we're probably about a half hour in length. But I think it'll be a nice program to kind of generate some additional excitement for the projects that we have started. Those are my two items.
I don't know if you get more excited than I already am. I gotta tell you the truth. So every time I drive by, I'm just like, oh my God, more stuff. So it's thrilling, really.
All right, so next, item 10 is board items. Based on our discussions in our work session, with regards to potentially putting something together in support of Bethel, Township trustees and several of the community members, with regards to the, proposed annexation. I talked with, me and Justin talked with John Budersky, our legal advisor, about drafting a resolution to push forward so that we could discuss it. If we choose to vote on it, we can. If we choose not to vote on it, that's okay as well. But I wanted to get it in front of you as soon as possible, as it came in this afternoon, for us to review. In speaking with John, I brought up three kind of key critical areas I felt like really came from our conversation. And, you know, those are the first one is the road infrastructure currently ready to handle the increase in traffic as they continue to build new homes? It's almost like we really need the infrastructure of 40, 201 and 202 to really be in place so that we can safely and effectively transition those with our school buses, transporting students to and from the school is our primary concern, but just general traffic as well. Second would be is that there's an ability for them to, if it does go through, if there's an opportunity for them to control the pace of construction, to allow us to be able to manage the growth as it comes, but does put some controls in place so that it doesn't outrun us. As we know, the student arrives, but the funding shows up 2 to 3 years later. And we're trying to manage all those pieces without any of the funding. So those are the two, was roads, slow the growth. Third one, so what's that? Our facilities are currently being built. We're 3 years out from building. It takes 3 years to build a building for a school. No matter if we start as our groundbreaking starts, it still takes a significant amount of time to do the building project. We have the K-5 building starting, but we're probably 6 to 8 years out from us getting picked up by the OFCC to do either the high school edition or middle school edition and a new high school, or high school edition and a new middle school, whatever that's going to be. But there's another building in addition to this, I believe, proposed in the master plan. So we're 6 to 8 years out from us being accepted in the OFCC for that even to start. And so we are not going to be able to meet that timeline, which will drive us. We've been able to do the current projects under the ELP program where we pay the money first, and then we get reimbursed for anything over our percentage. We do have a 20% is all we're going to have to pay as township taxpayers for this entire project. But to wait for them to select us will be too long. So the only other option we have, we maximize our option of building, which is the K-5 in the stadium. We don't have any more wiggle room to not go back to voters and say, we need a bond pass or something to build a building ahead of OFCC to manage the growth that we could see. And so that's not something we're wanting to do at this time. So we really need that, that goes as part of that growth, slowing that growth model down so that we can manage our facilities to meet that demand. So kind of talking in those three things, John drafted this board resolution for us to review. We'll click on it. As well as there is, I think probably what throws everybody off is the third whereas. That a formal request to transfer the property from Bethel School Districts to the Huber Heights City School District may be forthcoming. So, and that is coming faster than this resolution probably. They've already made the request to have the meeting. We're looking at not next week, but the week after, to meet with their legal team, superintendent and board president, our legal, myself and Mr. Ferks, as their initial request to potentially start the process to take not only what would be in this property, but Carriage Trail in Parktown back into the Huber Heights School District. And they would not be in our district. So there are specific requirements, 22. There's 22 questions that have to be answered. One way or the, I guess, if they're answered negatively, they could win the petition to have all the students returned to be moved to the Huber Heights City School Districts. If they cannot or meet those requirements, those 22 items, and they would remain. But then we would go to a mediation, but there's a court, a state appointed attorney that will review the case and decide. So we know that's coming as well as they're reaching farther and farther into our school district. So we'll be having that meeting in 2 weeks-ish as well. So at the Huber City School request, not ours.
So Huber City Schools wants that land.
They want the land.
I mean, they want the peoples.
That would be they want the students. So
Is that meeting the 28th? Is that the one you're talking about in Huber?
I'm not sure. The date specifically has not been set, nor the location.
So it's not the meeting that Huber's having?
No.
This isn't a public meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah, that's
have
like
any,
your city council, I think.
that's their city council. You're not
Yep.
talking about.
No, this is not a public, just our attorneys, their attorneys and us sitting down. Guessing they're asking the statement was made that at the city council meetings, multiple people expressed that our schools couldn't handle these students. And it's been stated in letters as well that our school can't handle these students. So since they've heard that we can't handle the students, then they believe that they can handle those students. Would like to have a meeting to discuss this.
And they're not just saying the new homes coming, they're saying the existing carriage trail.
Everything.
Every-
Parktown, Carriage Trail.
And all those people bought there to go to Bethel.
Correct.
I'd just like to say, I was just visited this weekend by 2 candidates that are running, one for mayor and one for citywide council for Huber Heights. It's Mr. Shaw and Mr. Udo. Those two individuals, I'm bringing this up because obviously elections have consequences. Those two individuals are the only two I know out of that whole city council that are against annexation of that property by Huber. So please consider that when you vote this fall. Those two, the potential future mayor and the citywide council member are against annexing the property. So please consider that from what you just heard. There's huge ramifications by the annexing. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I think their point would be is that there's been several statements being made that we can't handle the current students in our school system now. So that allows for them the opportunity to potentially go after those students for their school district.
Are they saying, who's saying it? The people in the community or?
Several people from the community went to the city council meeting and stated that the school board did not.
Right.
And it's been in a lot of papers and a lot of posts about the school can't do this and the school can't do that. We officially have not said anything.
Thank you. I was gonna say, I didn't think you guys, I just wondered who was saying it.
Facebook.
Would this have to be approved by the school boards for this to happen?
Negative.
Ohio Department-
We have no
It's
say in
out
it.
of- it's out
Ohio
of the
Department of
school's choice.
Education will decide.
So what would we do with the new school? So if you're gonna lose Carriage Trails, there is no need for a school.
Yep. Well, it's coming, so we're gonna have it, which would allow for a greater opportunity for open enrollment.
Which would be Carriage Hill Park Street.
So, well, in that case, instead of us getting $3,400 a student, we'd be getting the Huber rate, which would be $7,100 a student, so it'd actually double per student that way. But that's not our avenue, and that's not our thoughts whatsoever.
So this doesn't specifically talk about,
Those three things, that's what I was bringing up.
so does Huber also have the opportunity to just ask for the new annex property students to go to Huber?
That was their initial ask, the telephone call that I had,
Okay,
but other things were brought up as well, like Mr. King mentioned.
but that is an option for them because I'm just asking because the list of 22 questions might potentially differ.
Realistically, it would be probably a much easier for them to do the new one than
Yes.
it would the existing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, the
Because
list
one of
of
the-
22.
One of the first things that the Ohio Department of Transportation, might as well be, Ohio Department of Education looks at is it a tax grab?
Right.
And they may rule that it is, and that's the only purpose for them wanting to do this, and therefore deny it.
Versus this property that's not annexed, that's no one, this blank property, then they would get past the tax grab piece to start on this side in the middle and then go backwards.
Right, and there's also some other questions that it could potentially.
Oh, they could do that, start on one and then go backwards? Wow.
Finish a sentence.
Yeah.
No, I'm done.
So you guys saying you don't want the annexation?
So, further, we could refrain from speaking out while we're continuing, because this is an open comment period. So we can get through the business and then we'll go to open comment. So the idea that I wanted to bring forward was, this does not specifically state our three other reasons for that. This is just specifically a board resolution. But I didn't know if it fit all the benchmarks that we wanted, or did we want to make any revisions and put this on the special board meeting agenda for the 15th? Or does it meet the intent and then move forward, or go back to John with those other reasons?
Well, I mean, personally, as a resident of Carriage Trails, this obviously has a huge impact and implications for every neighbor I have, and as well as myself personally, so. I mean, that information is all brand new to me. I had no idea any of that was happening whatsoever. But I already had questions that I wanted to speak with our attorney about this before I would vote on it, so I was like, the whole vote until Friday. Personally.
Was there a time frame the township and Miami County Commissioners had wanted the resolution from us?
Miami County Commissioners had indicated sooner the better. But I don't know when they're doing their vote on
26th of October.
that one it is.
That's what it is.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that.
So why doesn't it include the other concerns?
So I don't know.
Okay,
I know,
I guess that'll be a question.
Right.
Because it seems like we should lay out the concerns, right, as to, because, you know, that's what the county's asking for.
The county's asked for information from the school district, which we're providing. That will help them make their decision. I don't know necessarily if you have to provide that in a resolution. I spoke to the, I'm terrible with names,
It was way less fault.
Wade Westfall. He had indicated, share with me enrollment numbers, projections, where you were 8 years ago, where you're at now, building space, what you're doing with construction, where you're going with construction, which is all that information that we'll have to them probably by Wednesday. I don't know necessarily if you have to put all that stuff in a resolution. I think they just asked for their own educational purposes to understand.
Okay, so then what's the purpose of the resolution?
Purpose of the resolution is to show that this is in support of what the township is doing to take that on.
So we provided John the initial annexation request. What the township had put forward. And then in our discussions, those 3 items. So this is what he put forward for us.
Is there any risk to us committing to a resolution?
It's not legally binding. It's just us showing a good faith and to not do the annexation. I think it's what we're resolving is that we support the efforts of Bethel Township in challenging and resisting the proposed petition for the annexation, and that we're going to send a copy of this resolution for that support to the Bethel Township trustees. So, really, that's, I think, the way he worded it specifically was within regards to the exact petition and to the exact statements that the township. So I did ask us to hold for the next meeting. Just kind of looking for what everybody wants.
I would be okay with that, just because we didn't, I just came here this afternoon.
Correct.
So this tight schedule, I would think it would be wise to wait till Friday.
I'm good with that as well. Yeah, and we have time. I just wanted to, I asked, Tina had asked how I wanted us to just put it both on there. That way, pending our discussion tonight, it would already be at least listed on the agenda so that we can take action if needed. So I guess the appropriate Robert's Rule of Orders is that this will be tabled. We'll table this, which requires us to address it at the next meeting.
Correct.
And then we'll just include that in the special meeting announcement for our meeting with the Board of Trustees. Does any other board members have items to bring up? Okay. And moving forward then, hearing of the BEA president.
Okay. I wanted to thank Julie Lawson, Caroline Lawson, Casey Dellinger, Mr. Mark Lute, Mrs. Erin Henry for helping me out at session stands during the Covington football game. But I really want to say kudos to the Bethel Athletic Boosters. Those parents dedicate so much of their time. Oh my gosh, and they make really good walking tacos. We also, the BEA would like to share our condolences to the Watts family as well as the Aller family. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next will be hearing of the public. Here's our guidelines. The simple ones is that you get 5 minutes to speak with regards to the board. Starting in order of how these were laid out, Donna Beam is first.
I know I got 5 minutes, so
I have warning cards now, Dawn.
Oh, but
I don't like to interrupt people, so I'm just gonna hold up a warning card.
I should be okay because I got it all typed down because I know I only have 5 minutes. Okay, mine is a follow-up question from last time. At the last BOE meeting, I asked why Bethel is mandating masks on school buses when there's presently no mask mandate in the state of Ohio. I was told that you conferred with the school's legal counseling and was advised that it was due to President Biden's executive order 13998. I requested a copy of that order, and the next day I did receive it from the president, Jacob King. Thank you for getting that to me. Have any of you ever read that, EEO? Personally, have you read it? Okay, well, I have. I spent a lot of time looking through it. And like I said, since I only have 5 minutes to speak, after taking some time to read the Biden's EO, conferring with my own legal resources, to put it simply, it never mentions school buses anywhere in the EO. The language in the order refers to conveyances and is interpreted by the CDC as requirements, but there was never that in there. Biden's executive order is completely unconstitutional and will be litigated in court. There are currently 27 states that have filed a lawsuit in response to the order. Ohio is one of those states. I can only assume that you're following the EO to not lose federal funding. There is no published peer-reviewed studies, clinical trials, or approval from the FDA that proves masks protects against viruses, especially when the manufacturers of these masks include a disclaimer on the packaging material stating that the masks are not intended to prevent the spread of disease. What scientific evidence is the school relying upon that has demonstrated any medical necessity for those medical interventions? The burden of the proof is on that. The burden of the proof is that the mask works is on those making the claim. By requiring masks, a medical device, on buses, you could be putting yourself in a position to be held liable for health issues resulting from mask wearing. If a child develops a health issue because of mask mandate wearing, parents could hold the Bethel BOE civilly liable. Tyranny is defined as a cruel use of power by a person or government that resists speech, religious beliefs, and freedom to seek one's own path in life. Thankfully, our founding fathers realized that our rights do not come from government, but from God. Inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are given by God, not government. They initially understood that it is your right. They initially understood that if it's your right or given by government, they can be taken away by government. Understanding that your rights are God-given means that you understand that no single person or government can steal them from you. Our founding fathers experienced this tyranny 240 years ago. We are experiencing today. Our God-given freedoms must be protected. The United States Constitution is our roadmap to preserving and protecting our rights. Again, let me remind you, an order, a mandate, a requirement, a recommendation is not a law. You took an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Ohio when you became an elected official to serve this community. I again ask you, according to the Constitution of the United States, what law has been passed by the Senate, the Congress, that you are following to implement wearing the mask or medical device on the buses? The other thing I would like to ask you tonight, in the meantime, if you would implement an overall form for a student mask exemption request form. Other schools have done that where parents don't have to come in and do a note or make their own exemption. If you would consider putting a mask exemption form available online or at the administrative offices where parents could come in and pick that up for that exemption. And I have a copy of that if any of you haven't ever seen one of those, where there's some, look, Beaver Creek is one of them that has it. Have you seen those?
No, I was just saying I would take one.
Oh, okay. I have a copy if anybody wants one of these where you could, I mean, this is what I'm requesting would be available for any parents or students that would want to have one of those in the meantime.
Okay.
If you can't decide on, and I'm done. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. I'll just take my notes. Sorry. Next up is Jennifer Swain.
1 month ago, I asked Bethel to institute the universal mask mandate and provided the science and reasoning behind why it was the most effective way to keep our children safe while continuing in-person learning. Since that time, there have been 142 confirmed positive COVID-19 cases in our district, with last week alone having 45 cases. For Bethel to continue doing nothing is not only negligent, but it's unfathomable. I'm again asking Bethel to stop perpetuating the spread of the virus and put in place a mask mandate. But I'm also asking about other mitigation steps that are available and viable options. Could we have lunches in classrooms where we form class cohorts so they're not likely to spread at eating? Are air purifiers for the classrooms being utilized? Have we maximized ventilation? Do we have a testing strategy like the other districts in the area have adopted? Has Bethel spent the COVID funds that the district received? Continuing to allow the virus to burn through our children is not something any pediatrician, nurse, virologist, or epidemiologist would recommend. The virus carries not only real health risks like myocarditis, long-haul COVID syndrome, multi-system inflammatory system in children, but all of these cases represent at minimum best case scenario, 6 missed school days. The children aren't in class and the teachers aren't there to teach them. Kids are falling behind. This also has a large effect on our community. The Delta variant has an R0 number of 6 to 8, meaning each infected person has the ability to infect an average of 6 to 8 other people. Those people could be your neighbors, your family, your own children. Bethel has consistently seen a week-over-week rise in cases. It's time to stop burying our heads in the sand and start doing something to keep our children safe. It's not magically going to go away because we ignore it. It's a public health issue, and it's time Bethel begins to start actually treating it as such.
Thank you, Ms. Swank. Alex Swank.
Hello, I'm Alex. I am here tonight to more reiterate what my wife is saying. I come today from the COVID unit at my hospital, and it's not over, unfortunately. We haven't done much this year to help ourselves. 193 cases overall. That's 193 weeks of missed productivity. Not only our most precious resource are children, but our second most precious resource as this small community are teachers. Our teachers are very important to us because with them, we kind of crumble. We cannot, as we have seen, supplant their presence in the classrooms. And all my wife and I are asking are for people to come together as a community and put community before self. That is what small towns around this country have always done. And that is what we grew up with. It is community before self. Everybody has their rights. I don't want to infringe on rights. Everybody has the right to their own path. But I'm asking community before self. This woman stood before you not because she likes public speaking, not because she wants to hear herself talk. She's terrified of it. But she is a bulldog for her children and an advocate for public safety. She will go to bat for anyone, whether you vote one way or another. She will always put her patients before the doctors, once before whatever political agenda people may have. She is always going to advocate for what is best for the community at large. And I have seen that for years now. And that is all I ask is community before self. Whatever we can do to do better for our community, we have proven that doing nothing is really getting us nowhere. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. You brought up some great points for us to look at. On top of just looking at masks, but from what is our ventilation rates, the purification systems, any of those. I believe we had discussed those several times, and I just don't know where we ended up at, but that'll allow us to go back and review that. But a couple of things that I captured that you discussed was lunch practices, air purification, ventilation, lunch practices, other opportunities within the classroom. That I captured the 3 primary points, fourth being masking, but
Fourth was.
and testing,
COVID.
testing, yeah. Just trying to capture key things that you had mentioned. Thank you. All right, that was all we had for speaking tonight. We have anything?
No.
Did you look, nothing, all right? Executive session, do we have requirements for executive session?
Yes.
We agree with,
Yes.
okay, and any other items?
We may need number 1.
And number 1 and number 3? Okay. Any others? All right. Based on our discussion of needing to go to executive session for items in 1 and 3, do we believe that there will be a resolution and vote after executive session? I don't believe it will be required. All right, so we have a motion to go into executive session for item 1 and 3 on our list. Thank you, Lori. Do we have a second? Thank you, Julie, for the second discussion. It appears that there is no requirement for a resolution to follow after executive session. So there's no planned action on the board at this time. Any other discussion? All right, can you call the vote?
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Reese,
Yes.
Mrs. Sebastian,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
All right. Executive session starts at 8:11 p.m.
Thank you for coming.
For coming.